You're pissing me off.
I'm a big Kevin Durant guy. Like, am I rooting for Kevin Durant?
Hey,
maybe a little bit, but not versus Minnesota teams.
Welcome to another
It's
edition of
Pawn.
I'm Isaiah. Kilgan with me as
Pawn.
usual, and Pawn is joining us today because we are going to be going
Are you guys
over
watching this or no?
all of the balance that is going to be coming
watch
up
on your
in
thing.
the Open Beta 7 update.
I'll listen to you talk about
There's a
it.
lot to cover.
There's a lot.
I know
Yes.
players got a little bit of
Also,
a
let them
sneak
talk
peek
about it
in
while
the
you talk
flash
about it.
test. If you participated,
No,
there,
I didn't,
but
Chevy.
we
I fell
wanted to
asleep.
sit down and talk with you all. Kind of
Game started at fucking 10 o'clock and it was in double overtime.
The scope of what we're doing is, but before we hop into it, we
So
do
you
see
didn't
you all
watch
in
it?
chat saying there may be
I
an
watched
issue with
fucking the
Xbox
first,
and
like,
not being able
2
to
minutes
log
of
in.
it.
We just messaged Kabir
Not even the
over
first
on the
quarter?
Titan Forge
We were
team.
down
They're
12 to
really
2, and then I turned it off. I was like, I'm not staying up to watch this dog shit.
No, you got it. That's it. That's all I was gonna say.
And I think that was pretty much it. I think the only other thing is I believe we did have a nerf for Yamoja's aspect go live
Yes.
yesterday, correct?
Yes, I know Clumsy was able to get that in. I don't remember exactly what the details of it were, but he had pretty high confidence it's going to address the main frustration points of it.
Cool. Yeah, I believe what we did is we reduced the damage on subsequent bounces.
Yes.
So if you, that first hit is always going to be 100%, but the subsequent bounces, that damage did get decreased.
Yep.
Cool. All right. Well, shall we get into the nitty gritty because we do
Yes.
have a big topic to go over. Pon, I'm gonna defer to you. Tell us. We're gonna start off with items today, chat, just
One of these
because that's
days
where
we'll
the bulk of the
get us some
changes
game.
are gonna be in this update. And this is gonna be the first update in kind of a multi-patch
Yes.
arc of
Yes.
item changes
Yes.
that we're doing. So, Pon, get us into it.
Yeah, so to take it from the top, OB7 is going to be kind of about us addressing the overall item, the power of items as a whole, as a concept, right? We want to make sure that we have a very solid baseline because in OB8, we're going to start specializing items a lot more aggressively. So things that are supposed to be meant for tank shredding will be really, really, really good at that,
Excuse
but
me.
they'll have less base stats to compensate, or they'll have other trade-offs. There'll also be items that are meant for like the early game buys that are meant to be pretty good, solid items that you just kind of pick up because they're good. But when you want the specialization items, you want to make sure that those are really clear. Like you have to be really building into a playstyle or countering a specific thing.
Yeah.
And if we don't do,
I
this
agree. I think that's a good call.
reset that we're going to discuss, it's going to create some balance problems that we're going to have with trying to do that. And then OB9 is largely for any feedback that we get over the process of this. We want to make sure that we have a patch dedicated to addressing any concerns that pop up, addressing anything that we might miss in this pass. One that we are being cognizant of, but we might miss is, for example, let's say chin size becomes a very tank-focused anti-tank item, right? Well, now on-hit builds are missing a core piece of their on-hit build. And so we want to make sure that there is an item there to actually represent that. So that's what like OB9, OB8 will be tailoring towards. But
So
to
they're-
get into like the details of
They have
what
to add a lot of
OB7 is,
items
that's
if they're
our
going to
first pass.
finish those.
We're essentially going to nerf every item by about 10 to 12%, which if every item gets nerfed this way, not that much changes in regards to the relationship of power level of item A to item B, but it does address a core balancing problem that we currently have right now. And to illustrate that, I had this in the dev notes, so I definitely say go read the dev notes as well, so you can kind of like follow through once we have dev notes out. But if you think about like Smite characters, they have their base level power and they have their item level of power, right? And if characters are all base strength, it's just their base stats, their abilities, and the base damage they do, and items don't really contribute anything to that. Well, characters are really defined by like whatever their kit says they can do. There's not much room for expression. There's not much room for trying to counter certain strategies, to try and push your character to do something that they might not baseline be necessarily that good at, right? There's reasons why MOBAs have items.
Yeah.
It's for that flexibility.
Yeah.
But if you go to the other side of the spectrum where
Okay.
items are, let's say they 10x what your base character can do, right? This is obviously the extreme, but just to illustrate the point, well, now your base character doesn't really contribute meaningfully to how the character is supposed to play, and it also creates weird balance problems. And the main one I want to focus on for this one is, imagine a carry versus a carry scenario. Actually, a carry versus tank scenario, right? A tank is 10x tankier because they built tank items. The carry needs to be able to actually kill that tank. So they build a whole bunch of things to kill tanks. The items for these to be able to do that have to be very, very, very powerful. And the second a carry sees another carry, the act of looking at them immediately causes both of them to explode. Yeah. Right? And that's a very difficult problem to solve. It's why, like, for example, if we were to try to
I disagree. I don't think squishy versus squishy damage is that high.
Here we're going to lower a whole bunch of base stats. You don't really address it, and you very quickly create tank metas or meta. Like it's one of those things where like you try to address one part of the curve, and it addresses the whole game in a way that is really hard to balance.
Yeah.
So the goal,
Oh, sorry. No, I was just gonna say like we were in a situation where it's like we could keep trying to band-aid a solution, or we could go back, we could fix what we saw as the core underlying problem and then move forward from there.
Yeah.
Yes. And so Smite 2 also has a unique problem set where we have a 7th item slot entirely, right? We moved starters over to a 7th item slot, so now you can actually build 6 items. So the amount of just item power from that alone was really high. And
But that's
when we
only
first
late
started
game.
Smite
I don't
2,
know
we
why
had
we're
kind of
worried
a
about
power
that.
budget
That's
in
just like his
mind.
late
But
game.
that power budget has crept up over time due to really fast balancing passes, just trying to make sure that things felt like they were interesting and engaging. Even just things like we don't necessarily know at the start of Smite 2, we didn't know how impactful active items would be.
Correct,
How much
yeah.
power budget should you budget for an item that has a 90-second cooldown? Over the balancing pass, we have a lot better idea of that. And so now the goal here is to kind of reset that baseline. We are still actually higher, basically the adjustment we made, we're still actually higher per item power than we started Smite 2 at. So this isn't like a super crazy reduction, but it's enough of a reduction that we feel like it's going to set our baseline up well for the OB8 and OB9 going forward.
Cool.
And
All
so,
well,
just-
I'm going to bring up the laptop
Yes.
because we've got a quick TLDR for you to
Yes.
read. So TLDR Open Beta 7 focuses on resetting the baseline power level of items. So this is that 10 to 12% kind of lowering of stats on items.
Yes.
For OB8, we're going to concentrate on enhancing item specialization, making their unique effects more impactful.
Yeah, and the side effect of that will be making building more interesting because you are making decisions based on what you see because things have specialized purposes.
Yes.
Not just I build things with best stats.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then for OB9 and any balance hotfixes leading into OB9, we're going to be dedicating our time to tying up the loose ends and addressing any issues that arise from kind of these broad, high-level changes.
Yep. And so I think the thing that, and just so people are clear kind of what
Well, it
we're
looks like
expecting,
base
so
damage
that
is gonna
if
be
we ship
worse.
this and it's not meeting that expectation, people can kind of know what to look for. Our goal is that in general, carry versus tank should feel pretty similar, right? Tanks lost a certain amount of stats from their items that make them tanky. Carriers lost a certain amount of DPS. We expect that to be relatively equivalent. And as
I
we
agree.
move closer to
I think
the Bruiser versus the
items
carry
like Kins,
scenario,
Heartseeker,
I expect that
Phoenix
the
Shield,
Bruiser,
those items
is
definitely need to be more
slightly longer,
specific.
and we have some targeted changes to address that.
I just
And if you go
think-
to carry versus carry, they should probably be the ones that.
I don't feel like when I'm playing on her, I just get one shot.
We think that there's room for them to go up a little bit, so we expect carry versus carry, the really high burst damage dealers, will have a little bit more breathing room, especially from themselves as well as bruisers with damage items jumping on them. But we don't want to make it so that tanks just feel like they're unkillable, and so that's an expectation of this change. Another
Actually, no, it
one
doesn't
is
even make
that
base
your
damage
power level as it
higher.
relates
Base
to the
damage
map
doesn't
is essentially
change.
weaker compared to the map.
It's
which
just your
we did a lot
top
of things
end
with
is
these strategies
lower.
to make that actually so that you're more powerful to the map. The map had less ability to stop you. You could fight objectives more regularly.
I mean, it's not
We've actually seen that have
9.5.
really- One, that's created some frustration.
This just slows the game down, is kind of what it
I
is.
feel like we've gone too far in that direction. So this also serves as a
Yeah, base damage is more valuable because items are
the map
worse,
is
yeah.
now going to be a bit more difficult. It's going to be harder to necessarily tower dive. You have to put more effort into doing these things. But again, the adjustment that we made here overall, it's not going to be so drastic that you log in and suddenly you're unable to kill a fire giant or you're unable to kill a tower. It's just a nudge in that direction.
Cool. So, all right, OB7, we said that pretty much every item is going to be
Yes.
seeing a little bit of a reduction, but we wanted to take some time and talk about some of the items that aren't seeing changes, which is effectively kind of like these items seeing a buff, correct,
Yes,
Vaughn?
exactly. So we didn't want to we know that we also still have some goals for example, Bruiser meta right now, tank meta, where people feel like, especially at the higher level
What?
of play, they just get completely run
Why
down
are
by
these
characters
four
that they
items
can't
the
kill
one-
when they have enough damage? So we did some more targeted, even further.
main point is the
nerfs to those
OB8
items and
pass?
shifts to those items to address that.
Yeah, but we
build,
still have to play on
as
this
well
patch
as
for
there's a
2
few items
weeks.
that we kept strong intentionally because we felt like either they're being really underutilized and having poor performance, or we felt like they could just use a buff that was just helpful for the health of the game overall.
Cool. So the items not being changed in OB7 are Titan's Bane and Obsidian Shard, your
Yep.
premier percent penetration items.
Yep.
Shifter Shield, which is a bruiser item, but seeing a little bit of low performance. Pawn, you want to go into a little bit of a detail on why we chose not to do anything with shifters?
Yeah, so because we're doing a lot of other bruiser item adjustments, so Runeforge Hammer's on the list, Gladiator Shield's on the list, Shield of Phoenix is on the list, right? We have a lot of these target adjustments.
Sure, we're not
We don't
buffing
want-
tanks.
We wanted to make sure that
I mean,
Bruiser
by
still felt like they had options.
not
to do something
nerfing
that felt meaningful
Pen.
to them. And Shifter Shield was
But
just not
again, I don't think
great
the
in that
issue
department.
is-
It just wasn't doing enough. And when we actually did our like stat squish with all the stuff, when we actually looked at the efficiency this item provides,
I don't think tanks had an issue with dying. It felt easy to. It feels easy to kill tanks. The issue is tank damage is just too high.
That well, people really weren't utilizing it, so we felt like that could be fine.
And seeing the adjustments that they had for some of the tank items was actually a good idea.
The ability
but
casters that can apply a whole bunch of ability stacks. We felt like that.
It's mostly just like the
could use
damage tank items.
Generally, if you were a mage, you probably just built Obsidian Shard and called it a day. But there's definitely some mages who could use Totem Death better, and we felt like that could use a buff.
Cool. All right. Well, let's get into some of the other items that, again, got the 10 to 12% change, but got even larger changes on top of that. So we'll kick things off. And as Pawn mentioned,
like these ones are good. These are the ones that we got a sneak peek of.
Here. So
these are good changes.
Pawn, let's go through them, and let's start off with Gladiator.
Less effective.
Yeah, so Gladiator Shield, obviously a really effective
numbers.
Item. It gives you a lot of defenses. It also gives you a lot of base damage. That you can
this is a really good. This is really good.
And we wanted this one not to just be, and this is kind of a prelude to the OB8 stuff that we're going to be doing, where these are going to be more specialized. Gladiator Shield was providing too much defense as well as too much just on-demand damage.
Yeah, no, it's true.
And we've now shifted it so that it's going to be less defensive overall. You're going to take more damage for having bought this item. But if you have actually committed 4 or 5 other pure tank items, not Bruiser items, pure tank items, you actually might hit harder with this than you did before.
Oh, wow, nice.
So a shift in that regard, but this should make it so that if you're rushing Gladiator Shield first or second, you're going to notice the trade-off here, and you're going to have to rethink how you're going to build Gladiator Shield.
All right, Glorious Pridwin up next.
No, we do care about the foundation. Don't say that.
People just
that is
into a build. It was really effective.
We care how the game is base getting built off of.
As well as
I just think that
so you're not getting as many ability spam as you are before as currently.
I don't think there was an issue with TTK between squishies versus squishies. I think the biggest issue was tank damage versus squishies.
And so we're making the shield more impactful, the explosion damage. The goal here, again, is that specialization pass. It's not just nerf the thing. It is this item should feel like a trade.
Like, all these changes are good.
Building these two together right now.
All these changes are good so far.
About 25
Gladiator Shield no longer is just going to be buy this first. You'll be OP. This will be a buy probably.
You could potentially have a higher payoff with one.
Probably third.
Otherwise.
All right, next up on
Glorious
the list
Pridwin is going to be a horrible second item now, but it'll be really good, like 4th, 5th.
It's a little bit cheaper.
And these two items will combo together really well.
This is a bigger nerf for the stat efficiency than other items. Losing that 100 health, losing that 10 physical protection. This one is meant to be
100%. These are all 4 good changes. 4 good changes.
Potential. So we didn't want to adjust the passive too heavy because we think it's good in what it does. But the stats it was provided.
15 to 0 is so funny. Yeah, you'll hit for what?
Yeah, I think it's
10 when you finish this.
Item identity,
right? Yeah.
The identity of Mystical Mail while you're buying it is to deal AoE damage in a tick around you, and if it also is one of the best tank items, it's like stat wise, then it's just the right thing to buy.
Yeah,
and that's not interesting. Yeah. Right?
I agree. I mean, I agree completely. That's why I think Mystical Mail should be built. It should be based off of your health. It shouldn't be just flat damage. It should just be, this is the amount of damage it's going to do. It's based off your health. Make it a health item. The fact that junglers are building Erendite and a Mystical Mail is boring.
Runeforge Hammer, an item that's been in the eye of a lot of people in the community. I
honestly don't think Runeforge was that OP. It does need a nerf, but
more of an adjustment just because of the stats it provides as well as how good it was performing.
The stats were just good. The passive was pretty
along with a decrease of strength, a decrease of health, and that regen, which basically is every wave, which comes every 30 seconds. You're losing 2 health per second. It's about 60 health off every wave. That's kind of how you think of that nerf. It should be a lot more manageable now. This is one that we might, based off just feedback, do more nerfs to, just like before we actually ship this.
What?
But we think that this is a good first step.
2,700 gold for 35 strength, 350 health, and 3 health regen is
supposed to. You build this on a character that has a lot of hard CC. You get a nice damage bonus for it.
2,700 gold for this item,
but it's hard to trigger on your own in the early lane. In the early lane, it doesn't scale
unless
crazy.
When it says recipe cost.
It already feels like a pretty good spot.
I think this means it adds 100 gold, right, Clumsy?
So much health and sustain.
This isn't just like that recipe has 100 more.
Shield of the Phoenix up next, and Voidstone, which you may.
Yeah, this needs to be. This needs to stay at 2%. 3%.
Counterpart to Void
This shouldn't be
Stone isn't on
3%.
this list. So
Yes.
let's start with Shield of the
More
Phoenix
expensive?
first,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
then we can talk about Void Stone.
This
Shield of
this
Phoenix,
needs to
again,
not
it's
go
very
through.
similar story.
Not it needs to not go
provided
through.
Too much health and physical
Playing
protection
against
on its
characters
own
like
right, but we wanna make sure
Cab,
that if you are
Achilles,
building this,
Mordred, and they're
you can
just
actually play
procking
into it
6
more
Shield of
with,
the
like,
Phoenixes in
buying
2
the power
seconds is
buttons,
just
right?
insane.
If you go like a Emanate a Charm, Yogis, and then you build this, and you build a lot of health, or you're just a character that has higher health in general, this should feel more.
They're trolling?
impactful
I mean,
for
you
having
could say
gone
they're
this
trolling.
route.
Most of these changes are good so
But
far.
It's not going to.
Their idea behind it, you can disagree with.
This one again is one that.
But so far, this is
looking at
hit,
it, right,
hit,
2 to 3%,
hit,
this might end up being slight
probably a
buffing in
miss,
scenarios.
but it
We
just
think
needs a
that's okay if you
slightly
lose.
higher nerf.
Because again, it's an intentional decision that you are making.
I also think Shield of the Phoenix should be like 15, and then this should be like stay higher.
That it provides.
Yeah, so when comparing there, because you have Void Shield and Void Stone, and they're very much mirror images of each other and what they
10 less
do.
procs, 50 less
And
health. Yeah,
Void
but
Shield or Void
getting an
Stone
extra
was
50%
providing
heal per
more than it
every
really
ability you
should have
hit.
for its like kind of stat power budget that we assigned to it. And when we went and looked at the stats,
If we want 3% healing, what are the balanced stats there? 0 protections, 0 health.
But we wanted to get them
Because that 3% per ability hit per god hit, unless you put a cap on how many people you can hit with a single ability.
Again, a lot of this patch is a lot of like.
Because if you hit the entire enemy team with one ability, 15% health heal just like that.
That's why we chose to do that.
Even at 10%, it was pretty high.
Potentially bring Void Shield.
Just build anti-heal? That is just build anti-heal.
Damage potential on you.
Anti-heal shouldn't be. You have to build anti-heal. If they're doing this one thing, it should be.
Yes, not significant.
It'll be more effective if you're playing against this character if you build anti-heal. It shouldn't be you have to build this.
All right, let's.
But it is, but it shouldn't be. It always has been. At the beginning of Smite 1 or Smite 2, it wasn't.
Right.
Yes.
It was not.
So, again, going back to our goals, we aren't talking about every
There's
item here.
too
because
much
we touched
healing in the
almost every
game.
item in the game.
We'll have full patch notes a little bit later on this week for everyone to go through.
But tankiness has gone down.
Especially
Damage
like
has
base
also
healing.
gone down.
Yes.
Like base healing is too high.
Again, we expect
Scaling healing I think is
carry versus
fine.
Carry time to kill to be a little bit longer.
Yep, it'll take a little bit longer to kill each other just because you aren't building.
Holy
any defensive items,
fuck,
so
Void
any
Stone is losing
reduction in
150
defensive
health.
items doesn't apply to you.
I don't even
and
see that item
power
built.
Does apply to you, so that will be a little bit slower, but we think that that's actually healthy for.
Also, so far, this
right now
nerf is also nothing because you don't buy Kins because of the strength. You buy Kins because of the
And
passive.
carry versus tank time to kill should be about the same with these
Yes.
changes. And tanks killing carries should take, I would assume, longer.
But that item spikes no matter what. This item could be 0 strength. It's still spiking harder
if
than
they're building
almost
pure
any other
tank,
item in the
like a
game.
Pure tank that hasn't built like the Pridwin and the Gladiator Shield, that should be about the same-ish. But that wasn't necessarily the problem people were facing. It was they're going to run you down with a Mystical Mail, they're going to run you down with a Pridwin, they're going to run you down with a Gladiator Shield. And now if a person's running you down with that build, you should have more.
I think they could actually
back of them as a carry, as a
even decrease Kins a little bit more and add a bit of an attack speed. But
in addition to what we're doing is because we felt like if we didn't do anything there, that actually might go up and that might favor the Bruiser.
Yeah,
We
yeah.
felt like we
It
really
is
had
a little
lot of
tough.
Extra stuff we need to do here.
Yeah. And then the last couple items on the list for just a little bit more than the 10 to 12% were Chin's Blade and Sunbeam Bow.
Yeah, if they were to be adjusted per the stat squish, it would look something like decrease strength from 30 to 25, or decrease attack speed from.
I mean, building
20
still
to
does have the
15,
same
or just a small
advantage as
cost
before.
increase. We felt like these items in particular, they were just. They're meant to kind of scale with the game, but they're also your highest DPS options at the start of the game, like as your first buys.
Yeah.
Which just. We wanted to make sure that they need more support.
So
from other
far,
items to feel like
all
they're
they've done
strong
is they've
foundation.
other than
They're meant
I
to
don't.
be those types of items. They're meant to be
This
the
just seems like a
thing that
stray. This is
rounds
like when
out
you're
your
like shitting on that
build
one
rather
friend and
than
the
being
like the other
strong
friend just
looking
like
on it.
fucking catches the stray. Like I don't know why
Well, I
Void is
think
really
that
getting
is
nerfed.
everything that
Maybe
I
it's
had on the
overbought in
list
some other
for
games, but
items.
like
again, we're not going to go through
this
every
is a good
single
nerf.
item
This
one
is a
by
good
one
nerf.
because it's a lot. We will have patch
This
notes
is
live on
kind of a buff,
a little bit later
I
on
think,
this week.
by a lot.
Or if you're interested in
And then the
who
rest of
we're
the items are nerfed. So
practicing
far,
against
this is mostly just
afternoon.
nerfs to
Yes,
some of the
if you wanna hop
top-end
in
items.
you can.
Yeah.
Probably be a smaller. Usually, the second day of flash testing, just fewer people show up.
Yep.
But we do keep.
Why is Kins a good nerf?
Keeping the servers up for
Kins
longer
is
than
auto build
night,
every
turning
game
off
by
the
ADCs because
constant
it's
queues,
so
if you want
overstated and the passive is
customers who wanna
broken.
practice and just mess around with
You
stuff,
could
can
build
do that.
one attack speed item with
I
Kins,
think,
and Kins is
you know,
still
as
valuable to
you're
have.
playing it,
That's an issue.
Think about kind
Kins
of the way that
Kins
we
is a bloated item, and this is
what our
probably one of the
goals
items that they're
are.
talking about.
And
Reset like the
assess it versus,
foundation.
like,
Kins
are
should be
we
the you're
achieving
attacking a
our
lot
goals,
and you
where
want
are
to
we
kill
not
tanks.
achieving those
That
goals?
should be
If you agree
Kins'
with those
niche.
goals,
Kins'
yes.
niche
And if you agree with those goals, then let's
should
talk
be
about
that. But currently,
where we're
Kins is
failing
just
to
you
get
build
there,
this if you're an
and
ADC.
Not specifically like, it's really easy.
Yeah, I don't know why I said niche.
obsess over they nerfed everything in the game or whatever, right? It's like this is the first step towards getting us to where
Trans is no way. Trans is getting nerfed.
A step in the right direction. So please just try it. Think about where we think we're trying to go, and let us know how it's feeling.
Yeah, and
it also replaces Fen.
MOBAs are notoriously complicated. Yes. Just over my time working on Smite.
And even if I disagree with some of the things that they're saying at the beginning, if they are hitting on stuff, maybe my original point is just wrong, where this isn't going to change the game that much.
And we
so far, this is a fine patch. I do not. This patch is not a negative at all.
All the changes we did
by the item nerfs
on hit assassins.
Right.
And maybe my idea of 10% is a lot bigger than
we've also seen things where an item exists in the game,
what it is.
That we make a small change to some item over here. People will rethink their builds and go, "Oh, actually, the best way to play the game is to run 10 of these items on every single."
Because also on top of that, Kins is a late game item.
So MOBAs are just
the fact that you're seeing Kins' second item just speaks to how strong this item is. And there's some players going Kins first.
Because when it actually goes to live, when people get their hands on it, there might be parts of this that we didn't anticipate, that players discover different ways of playing the game.
Also curious that they kept Totem, Ob, and Titans, but they're nerfing Xe.
They go, oh, actually, we could be playing the game this way. So we just want to be really receptive to any place where we feel like we're missing these goals, and be really quick to react to that.
Yeah. And I would say one more thing before we move on, if you can.
No worries.
Maybe I'm kind of putting you on the spot here.
No, you go Kin second because there's no other good second item.
There are some notorious balance.
It's because ADCs get stuck at that third or fourth item, so you have to go like the latest.
9.5.
It's like it's a few different reasons. One, you have 3 items needed in your ADC build. It's the first item, which is your spike, and then it's Xe Kins. So those are the 3 items that are important. If you take a team fight around Gold Furies, you need to have those items.
Carried versus carry time to kill is too bursty. A way to resolve that could be everyone gets 10 prots, right? And that would largely resolve it.
No, don't do that.
Those prots benefit tanks more, and that's how those types of adjustments can cascade and be like, well, now the game's
those benefits.
This change.
Those are good for hybrid characters. Just getting flat buffs like that
is done the way it is rather than just buffing like potentially squishy tankiness.
Kins would be a shit item if gods didn't have so much health.
Power of items.
Yeah, if nobody built health, the anti-health item would be worse. That is true. If people didn't build protections, penetration would be pretty bad too.
Whereas when they go to fight a tank, that tank also came down as well. So that's why we're trying this approach versus a lot of other approaches. And that's why sometimes when you see us do things like pen's too strong in this patch, we're going to reduce pen. You can very quickly swing the game one way or the other really heavily because those are very global adjustments that affect they affect how every single class interacts with every single class in a way that's a lot more difficult to control. That's why we want.
Yeah, ADC is still going to be an Autobot item, but it shouldn't be a first item or a second item.
Also setting us up for
maybe even third. You probably there's a chance you delay it, but I think third is probably
talk about a
spot.
relic, gentlemen. I
heard. I didn't see it, Rue.
Let's kind of talk about our next steps for Blink. What we're planning after all the testing that we've been doing.
Yeah, so the current next step for Blink is we're going to decrease the cooldown from 210 to 180. We agree that the cooldown is too long. Yeah. And we also want to give it some extra
it's still useless.
For you to
it's still useless.
That further reduces the cooldown. So
it's still useless.
If you get a kill or you attack
the problem with Blink
4 seconds of blinking,
is that I want to punish the enemy for having something down. If the enemy always has beads up when I'm looking to engage, or always has ult up when I'm looking to engage, this is just going to be bad.
The game went from at the casual levels, the game was
if it was 180 or sorry, if it was 150 and it would go down to 120 if you got a kill,
that went
possibly.
Down to about 2.
But this is still bad.
Beads taking like
beads are also just so busted.
But as you went very
unless they kick beads up. If they kick beads up another 30 seconds, it's okay.
Or SR plus. It became very quickly.
Don't be an asshole, Crow.
Beads and Blink was maybe one of a choice. And its win rate fell where it was actually doing pretty well at casual level. So that just kind of shows the disparity between like the overall like most players' experiences versus the very top end where they can actually like they can leverage the advantages a lot more. And so because of that, we felt like Blink definitely
4 seconds might be a little low too.
Be improved on. But we think that overall the games felt healthier. People still are using Combat Blink to be able to engage with things the way that they want to, but people aren't just immediately fleeing fights with it for free. Right. There's more counterplay to it. So we're probably going to
I hate that they say you can escape for free.
Again,
you can maybe escape from for free, but then your Blink is on cooldown for the next 3 minutes, 4 minutes. I don't know. I just hate that response. Like I get what they're saying, but I just hate that.
From chat, real quick. Just to confirm, this is not Combat Blink. This is Blink with the same rules.
Yes.
Out of Combat Blink.
Yes.
This if you kill multiple people, does it
at the
is it
5%
reduced by 30
highest?
seconds multiple time?
I
One
mean, the
time.
difference between beads and,
then,
blink
people are
is
questioning
nearly
the
twice
wording
as
of
much.
Basic attack or kill.
It doesn't even have to be
Yes.
like capitalizing. It's
Is
literally
that
just
in
playing the
terms of,
game
or is it
normally.
Use an ability, or is it?
Because low-level players
so-
fight more often than
Actually, I
high-level
think
players because they're just permanently
the way I
fighting. It's like an
understand
arena
it,
game
it's just
in
going
Conquest.
on damage.
So a lot of the times your blink is
And
going to
the
be
kill clause
down
is really there for like
a fight or two in between fights happening
cases
instead of
where,
just
like, the
one
tower
bead.
sniped it from you,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Like technically, to get a kill, you're gonna have to hit with an ability, so that felt like a weird clause, but it's there because towers can get the kill.
Yeah, and does like
What's
this is
Dota
my
2's
ignorance,
blink?
Like if
Out
execute
of curiosity, I've never
damage,
played the
like,
game.
Yes.
Okay, so that works too. Sweet.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, let's get into God balance, shall we?
Blink
Yeah.
da- oh, it's an
Some exciting
item.
stuff here.
We've got Merlin kind of performing on the lower end since his release. So he's going to be seeing a round of buffs here to a few abilities. His Arcane 1 and Arcane 2.
I wanted them to hit the cooldown on
his
arcane
Radiant,
and
his
fire
Fire
abilities
one,
instead of
also
the
gonna be seeing
scaling and the damage on them.
And then
But
Blizzard
it's
is gonna
fine.
be
They had to
increasing
do one of the
deployment
two
range
things.
of
Because I do think his
Yeah, so
he was a
for
tiny
everything
bit
that's the
underwhelming.
damage adjustments, he was just underperforming. We saw that, especially as the time went on, he was.
Yeah, it does
falling
change it a
lower,
lot.
Remembering how to play against Merlin, and the people who are learning to play as Merlin, getting familiar with that muscle memory again, they weren't really catching up. So we just felt like he needed a buff. But the
Yeah, that's how
Blizzard
smart it
change
is right
actually just
now,
a special
Pereira.
parity miss.
Oh,
You couldn't
okay,
deploy
nice.
it as far as intended, so that should just make his combos feel more natural. And this is in addition to some other changes we made over hot fixes that made so that some ability feedback, some post-fire timings got adjusted as well. So he should feel in a pretty good spot after all this.
Cool. All right. The next one, I believe, is a big paragraph here, Pawn. So
Ooh.
Aladdin.
Oh god.
Going to be seeing a large shift here. And
Oh,
you're the
interesting.
perfect person to
Yes.
talk to us about Aladdin. And what
Interesting.
We got going on.
Little bit of history. Aladdin, very strong, had to be nerfed a lot of times, to the point where he's like one of the lowest performing characters in the entire game. He gets a little bit
can
better
see
at
that.
high rank, but he's still underperforming. But he's also a contentious ban because he warps team fights so heavily that you kind of have to respect it, especially.
I wanna
at
hear
the
what he
high
says
level where,
before
like,
reading
that can
it.
just really immediately swing a fight. And so our goal here is to help him overall, give him some more capacity to be a threat when he comes to like poking
move my
targets and
cam?
just doing some chip damage in, but make it so that the top end damage potential when he utilizes all of his genie forms is a bit lower, and then change his ultimate such that it has more upfront
Can't.
actual oomph behind it for
Can't.
the Aladdin player.
Doesn't fit on the
but
left.
Make it so that when the fight does happen, it's a much more fair fight between the players. So very quickly, Kuvik Invocation. You could read most of these changes as the base version of the ability got better, but the genie version of it got a little bit worse. Either had scaling reduced or had base damage reduced, and that's across the board for all the abilities.
Okay.
And then into the lamp, it now
Charges a little
actually
bit
does
quicker.
damage when it hits the target. It just can't do damage below the health that you would restore your target.
They're giving him a lot of strength scaling.
And then they heal, yeah.
A lot of strength scaling. He might become just a strength building god.
Have some damage done to them already.
Oh, nice.
But Aladdin no longer gets that advantage that he was before, where he would always heal to 60, but his ally, the enemy that would come in, was 60 down to 40. That's actually now been equalized to 50 overall.
Okay, nice.
And as well as the enemy has more CDR that they get when they enter the stage. So the fight should feel more fair. So the goal here is that this should have brought that top end fight warping down a little bit, given players more oomph for actually hitting their ultimate successfully, and then adjusted the damage such that the combo pieces that he does when he just wombo combos someone isn't necessarily stronger.
So you kind of
But when
start
he's
fights
looking
with
to
Into the
poke
Lamp
damage
now.
someone that is stronger. And this is a very large shift because he is a very unique character in what he does. But we think this should put him in a healthier spot overall. It should feel better to play as Aladdin, but it should also feel better to play against Aladdin.
Just to confirm I'm reading this right, I can't just like kill somebody with a
No.
lamp, right? Okay.
If you
I
hit
can't
some,
just throw a lamp at you, bounces off your forehead, you fall over.
yeah, if you hit someone at 1% health, you'll deal 0.
That would be
damage.
funny if
I
you
think
could
you'll
kill with the
actually see
lamp.
damage number pop up. It just won't actually deal that damage.
All right, next up, we've got another all-new Smite 2 goddess, Hecate, going to be seeing some buffs here. Triplicate form, we're going to be increasing the damage. Repel magic, we're going to be increasing the magical shield. And then Open the Gates, the ultimate, we're going to be increasing the damage on that ability as well.
Yep, Hecate, again, just kind of underperforming across the board. She felt like we could do some buffs here. It's notable that we also made sure to avoid buffing or changing the 2 because
Pretty
while
insane
she
buff,
is
2 or
underperforming
1.
in like Conquest, in the arenas.
Also,
and
that
the
shield
assaults
health under
and
3 is
joust, the aspect version of it's very, very strong.
Pretty
And so
insane.
we wanted to make sure that what we were providing was largely buffs to her.
I'm surprised they're buffing her ult. I thought the buff or her ult was like one of the bigger issues that they had, and they had to kind of like uber nerf her buffs or her ult.
Next up is Bacchus. Going to be seeing some buffs here to Chug and Belly Flop. Chug going to be seeing decreased cooldown and increased protection scaling, and then Belly Flop, we're going to be increasing the damage, and then Bacchus now applies a longer duration slow if targets were successfully knocked up.
Yeah, so Chug, obviously, just having lower cooldown means you heal more often, you can maintain your drunkenness, you can get access to the in-hand bonus damage more regularly. Belly Flop, more higher base damage is more threatening. And that last note is actually a parity change that largely mirrors what happens in Smite.
Okay, nice.
Because in Smite 1, it's when they land, they get a 2-second slow. In Smite, it was when you get hit, you were getting the slow, which means the whole air time that you had was basically eating the slow.
Right.
So now...
Wait, are there not more items we getting nerfed, Clumsy?
2 seconds remaining. And if you didn't get knocked up, you'll have 2 seconds.
Cool. All right, next up on the list, Vulcan.
Big changes to Vulcan, right?
Some spicy changes here. So, Mastercraft.
They're not showing all of them? Oh, okay, okay.
A couple of the mods, the efficiency mod set. This
Well, there's
mod
only like
now
7
provides 5
items
intelligence
that we
plus
saw
1
nerfed.
level. In
So I was
addition
just
to
curious,
CR bonus,
are we not seeing
and
all
then
the
seismic
nerfs to the
mod,
items?
Is now going to cause Earthshaker to knock up enemies in addition to the tremble effect. And then Backfire just increasing the damage on the ability.
Yep. For the passive, it's the pieces that weren't really being utilized, weren't getting that much effectiveness. We just want to make sure that feels strong.
Earthshaker to knock up enemies in addition to the tremble effect? Holy.
Again, but we wanted to make sure that how you choose to play Vulcan
On the
each
patch
of
notes,
those
gotcha.
feels pretty good. And then he did have a little room to come up that we've just seen over letting him rest for his...
I think his aspect is still pretty underwhelming, but these buffs help Vulcan mid.
Why does Kabrakan say small buff?
Yeah,
And all the other ones just say buff.
Because when I'm writing the notes, sometimes I write small, sometimes I don't.
Ooh, that's cool.
Aladdin
This is
got a
cool.
large shift.
Yeah,
This is
yeah,
cool.
That did match the definition of large shift.
In addition to the base I'm
Let's
at.
talk about Kabrakan though. So Shadow Zone now provides Kabrakan an additional.
I mean, you're only hitting one
1%
person with,
damage
usually only hitting one person with
every
this.
100 protection from items, and then Refraction Shield. We're going to be the enhanced Refraction.
Yeah, I don't think
Shield
Kabrakan really
now
needs buffs,
also
but
restores 1% maximum health in addition to the base amount.
Yep. This change is really focused on making tank Kabrakan feel
But I think
better.
this is a
We think
cooler
that the, offensive,
buff
especially
to
the,
Kabrakan, and they can just bring down his damage a
Kabrakan
little bit if they
build
need
where,
to.
you get a lot of resets.
Rama
I feel like
buff.
that one's actually doing pretty well now that we've buffed a lot.
Where to
of
see this balance? Titan
The
Talk.
tank version of Kabrakan just doesn't feel as impactful, and so giving him extra mitigations from his aura zone when he builds protections, and making it so that when you do build those,
Also,
you're getting
a
more
lot of,
from
like,
it. That's gonna
The Kabrakan
more
builds have
affect
like a
that
strength
tank
item
side of
first, so you're not even
Kabrakan
gonna
that
see
you
a.
feel like you can help in.
This isn't gonna affect you like at all.
On to Ram.
Oh, yeah?
Rolling Assault going to be increasing the bonus damage, and then Astral Barrage, the ultimate, going to be increasing the damage.
Yep.
Holy,
another
that
case of a
early game
character we
buff.
feel like is just kind of underperforming. He's
Just
settled.
use a little bit of love.
Yeah, he before his aspect version was actually doing pretty good.
But Poseidon
since then
now.
we've kind of seen that fall off, so we just felt like Rom, both aspect and unaspect, could use a buff here.
Yeah, cool. All right,
I mean,
here's
I
a
guess
fun
this
one.
is also a
Pele
Kabrakan
gonna
support
see a
buff,
little
which
bit
I
of a
kinda
shift
like.
In
Yeah.
Open Beta 7. So Eruption, we're going to be removing the dash when used while Enhanced Magma Rush is active, but instead Pele's Eruption will now always gain a burst of movement speed during the pre-fire of Eruption, and then the timing of the ability has been adjusted a little bit just to make sure that visually it looks different, but the ability is the same.
Yes, so we got
Also,
a
it's
lot
more
of feedback for the plus
controllable.
ones for Pele,
It's
just
more
to really hit the
controllable instead of
mark.
like an actual dash.
A lot of times the dash that you were getting was
This
disrupted.
is
You
such a
might
good
not expect
change.
it to happen.
Such a good
Maybe
change.
sometimes overshot
It's just
the
like
target,
the
you had to kind of play
like
crazily
it's a
around it.
dash. It's the exact
And we
same
had some ideas
distance.
to
You
fix
can't
that
like
at the
adjust it
time,
at
but
all. This is a really good
since
change.
Bari came out, we had this new piece of tech with this scaling movement speed,
Mm-hmm.
and her 3 we actually think has felt really, really good to play, right?
Yeah.
Like it gives you that movement burst that you need, but it feels very controllable. And we're like, well, why doesn't Pele do that instead? And why we're at
As
it,
an
why
ambassador
does she have
brainstormed
to have
idea?
the 3 enhanced to do this?
Maybe
She
they're
has
not
to do it
useless.
all the time. So we feel like
I'm
this
an
is a more
ambassador, by the
fitting
way,
plus one
so
for
I
her.
just called
It utilizes
myself not
tech that we've
useless,
already kind of
even though it wasn't my
pre-built,
idea.
really good. She has her own custom curve for it, so it's a little bit different than Bari's, but basically when you use the ability, you're going to be able to cover more distance all the time.
That is a really good
It's
change.
that kind of burst of speed that you get when you Bari 3.
Cool.
And then the other note is just she would jump up in the air and slam down, and then would be standing there for a little bit, and then you'd see the pulses go out, and that's gonna feel more seamless. She's gonna be in the air a little bit longer, but when she lands, it's gonna have the visual come out.
Would you
So that's
consider
more of
movement
a
speed after
fix
casting?
for
Yeah,
the
because it's
field
got like a slight
ability.
delay to
The
it.
actual timing
It's
hasn't
like you
changed
press
at
it,
all.
you knock up.
You
press it, you knock up.
Show this off in just a little bit. We'll go
So like you press it, you can dash a little bit, it knocks up.
Pretty cool that we wanted to show off too. But
Well, it's not a dash, I guess. It's a you just get a movement speed buff.
So the Morgan up next going to be seeing a shift. So
killer!
Doomsayer, the dot damage on the passive ability
To ability damage. So this doesn't execute minions anymore. Dub.
Deadly aspects, we're going to be increasing the damage, but then
Fine.
Dark Omen, we're going to be decreasing the minion damage, but increasing the initial damage scaling and the mark scaling.
Yeah, so we wanted to buff
This is a
Morgan
really good.
while
This is a
ago,
really
but
good change to
one
her.
aspect of her that was really, really impressive was just the wave clear.
Yeah,
Especially
no, this
with
is actually a
the
really good
passive
change.
being a dot that could trigger the minion execute. It made that she was like really, really good at pressuring out.
This was my idea, by the
we
way.
saw that
The
her
ambassadors
more
came up with
mage
this
style,
one.
her more
That might be a
assassin
lie.
style
I don't think it was my
just
idea.
Didn't have the
Don't think it was an ambassador idea either.
So this shift is very much targeted towards weakening the wave clear portion of it.
This
It
is
being
my idea, right?
ability, damage means that it won't trigger that minion execute anymore.
Ah, okay.
So that's just gone.
Yeah, that's
Morgan
that's a
support
big
dead?
change.
No,
Yeah.
she's still good.
Yes. Yeah, that one doesn't. You don't really
Worse.
feel the impact of that unless you know exactly why we did it.
But she's still fine.
But
Her
to
ultimate
compensate,
transform
the
is still
aspect
really
more
strong,
powerful, and her scaling
which is
on
part of the
shield
reason you play her.
powerful.
Yeah, the Pele change is really good
Princess
too.
Bari up next, going to be seeing a little bit of a nerf here. Gotten a lot of feedback that Bari's performing really well. So Mystic Surge, the passive, we're going to be decreasing.
It's biggest
the
on this
attack
early
bonus.
portion of the game.
Sacred Bell, we fixed an issue where this
Late
was
game, it doesn't
gonna
really
be
do
too
much.
from intelligence when enhanced. And
Moriel
then
thing? What
Reverence
Moriel
Depths,
thing?
3, we're going to be decreasing the base damage and the instant.
Yeah, because I
Yeah, we
complained
think her
about that.
early
I
lane
complained about
is
that in there,
largely
clumsy.
Strong because
The Morgan.
of the base damage that Reverend Steps provides for the wave clear. So toning that down means that her wave clear is going to feel a little bit more manageable. And then the late game side of her, we think that was overpowered because she was just kind of getting too much free stats from her passive, as well as that hidden. We were looking.
I think this is a good change. Good change too. Or
That's where we found the bug, and that bug is a pretty significant intelligence scaling adjustment. We think that the inside of it, that late game, the ability was the part that really needed to be adjusted. The attack speed's going to temper the more strength focused side.
I think her late game is going to be just as good, but I think her early game will feel a lot worse, which is good. I think she should be a good late game character. I think her early game was just.
I did not have
frustrating.
time to alphabetize this. It's very much a copy-pasted list. So yeah, you get surprises of who's next.
I know, right? So Summon Suku for a Wheelish, we're going to be decreasing the strength scaling.
This is
Same
just a
thing with
revert.
Light Charge.
This is the revert of the revert of the revert.
I don't care. I don't
We
care.
did some
Laugh,
early hop
laugh if you want.
exchanges.
I'm
We found
glad.
some core bugs
I'm
that
glad
we
this
needed to
that they're
resolve.
that
We
they're
thought those
reverting the
bug fixes
revert,
were
even
gonna
if
be
it's
big
like,
and
oh,
impactful,
that's so dumb. You reverted the
main
revert of the
thing that we
revert.
were thinking was the most
Who
impactful
cares?
was the fact
This
that
is
she
a good
got passes
change.
all the time, no matter what. And we thought that fixing that was going to be a pretty big hit to her. It didn't actually affect her as much as we thought. So the preemptive reverting of the nerfs we did as a stopgap, we have now reverted back, and we have these nerfs.
Cool. Mordred up next. Going to be seeing a nerf to Aspect of Rage. Going to be decreasing the.
Damn, they're nerfing his
cooldown
aspect.
reduction
What's
while
Cruel
weapons
Strikes? Is that the one?
active. And then Cruel Strikes, the one we're going to be increasing the cooldown. And this is for base version of Mordred as well.
Yes. Yeah. So we think the aspect
it
of
says
rage
Critical
counting
Strikes
them
1.
down
I'm an
is
idiot.
definitely- You're getting a lot of reduction from that. And then separately, we just also think that he was getting access to Cruel Strikes too often.
Cool. All right, and I think last up we've got Odin.
Yeah.
Gungnir's Might now pierces gods, but will only stun the first god hit. It's a big change. And then Ring of Spears, the ultimate. Odin gains a stack of his passive upon casting his ultimate, and now also provides 8 intelligence in addition to 5 strength per stack.
Love it.
Killing an enemy
Love it.
God while
This god is
inside.
good right now,
Yeah,
but I
so
think
Odin
these are
has
good buffs.
been on our backlog for a long time to
This
do
is really
something
cool.
more with.
Yeah.
But because that takes time and we were building out a
Both.
whole bunch of other things.
This
we
this
really
is
didn't
kind
get
of
to, but
whatever.
we thought
I think it's a
it
nice
wasn't
change,
worth sitting
but this
on
is really
the
cool.
ideas that we have any longer.
This is cool.
We should just do some things to help him out. That Gungnir's Might Piercing Gods actually came from a Reddit thread suggestion.
Nice.
Reddit?
We looked at that.
It
and
was a
like, that
stupid
actually
idea
just feels
then.
like it's
Hate that
gonna make this
change.
character feel better.
Yeah.
At the same time, his passive had very limited interaction with Kit. He didn't have a way to gain access to it. Now when he ults, he'll get a guaranteed stack of it, which feels great. And then the other part is he is a hybrid character, but he wasn't getting the
No,
intelligence
passive
and
stacks
that's
is the
what
movement
missed.
speed you
So we
get.
had to fix that. So
So when you
this is going
drop
to help
ultimate,
Odin
you
quite a
get
bit,
movement
and it
speed, and I
just
think it's strength,
smooths
but I
out
could
some
be
of the
wrong.
advantages he had that were really arbitrary, and there wasn't really any reason for them to exist.
No.
Um,
Yeah, the ult
we
stacks
may
permanently.
circle
The
back
passive
still
only
on
stacks up
Odin.
to
This is not a
5 or
we're
6 or
done
something
with
like
Odin,
that.
We're not going to do anything. It's just a
Yeah, this god is
we
going to be a
know
little
that
strong.
We have ideas we want to do. They take a lot of time and effort, and in the meantime, we'd rather do things.
I don't
that
care.
are
I think if it's a good idea,
than
they should just do it.
do
I don't care if the character is too strong. Especially with a god like Odin. This
That
character
is it
sucked for so
the
long.
God balance that I've got going on. I'm going to bring us back to cams while I load in game, and you all can maybe start a little bit of Q&A while I get the game loaded up, and we can show off that Pele change.
Sounds great.
Yeah.
Oh, I've seen this question asked a few times. How do you think these changes should impact game length?
My expectation is games will go longer off these changes. Generally, you need kind of a certain amount of power to be able to even end the game in the first place. Even if the entire enemy team is down and you have a minion wave of the Phoenix, it takes a certain amount of time to kill the Phoenix. It takes a certain amount of time.
Especially because they're buffing objectives and structures.
Power. And because you're delaying that a little bit because now you don't get as many stats, the game length should increase. I have been surprised in the past, right? Like one aspect is tanks are going to be less effective at potentially walling you from sieging a base. That could be a consequence of this. It also could be that tanks have a harder time actually being in the front line that takes the Phoenix shots for the team, which might mean that defenders have more of an advantage. My guess though is game length goes higher, but we have quite a bit of room for game length to go longer before we're super worried. So we don't expect it to be enough that we'd want to like temper these changes.
How do we feel about mages?
Mages are definitely in a tricky spot because I think they're more sensitive to the penetration shifts that we do than carries and assassins are, just because carries and assassins have more consistent pressure because they just by nature they can auto attack. So if their abilities are down, they could still contribute. They probably have some room to come up. And that's why we made sure that Totem of Death remained strong. And we also didn't temper Obsidian Shard, was to make sure that they still felt
what
like...
does FTR mean?
It may be that we need to give them more intelligence more intelligence options.
For the record?
That's actually something we were looking at when we were talking about the OB8 stuff in terms
For the record?
Is it does feel like
Comeback mechanisms the game length is shorter than ever.
High intelligence items.
I could see that.
It's really hard to actually create a high intelligence build. You basically
I could see that.
and that's it. Otherwise, you have to pick utility.
I mean, they're nerfing Alma's build. Alma herself is not that broken. Alma's broken because of Sunbeam Bow and like Braggies, which got nerfed last patch, and then they're getting nerfed again today. Well, one of them is. Well, they're both getting nerfed today.
Complaints that we feel most strongly about are actually related to the tanks building the Runeforged Hammer, the Mystical Mail,
the Bruiser items. Yeah,
it's if they were just a tank and they ran at you, but they weren't that threatening on their own, they couldn't kill you on their own.
What about Berserkers? Berserkers is getting nerfed.
The time that you take to kill them generally feels okay. But when they can run at you and you have to feel pushed out by that, and when there's potentially two of them running at your team that combined can absolutely kill you, that was what we were more worried about. So the carry versus tank stuff should stay the same, but now if that tank player has built the Pridwen, they have built the Gladiator Shield, they're losing more protections on that build. That's why we've made those adjustments specifically. They should.
Why 70% of my games longer than 45 minutes? That's just your own games. It's just anecdotal evidence. It's me saying
it should become better in this world.
you when you say stuff like that, it just becomes anecdotal and it just doesn't mean anything.
Yep.
Well, at like a base level.
So, I will fire.
If enough people feel the same way, then it means something. But like me just saying,
That's nice. Yeah.
And if you just kind of like WASD as
my games have a lot of CAD players.
If you do
Sweet.
You probably just have
Cool.
Oh yeah, 1 second. All right. Well,
It doesn't mean anything.
So you said just like WASD around.
Yeah. So you can change.
I want to see like if you can like fucking boomerang it.
Like you don't have to move anywhere. You can WASD. You can go in a circle.
Well, you can circle.
That you're doing this without
Boomerang.
E3 being active at all. That mechanic just doesn't exist anymore. So this should just feel nice to Pele players.
Oh,
like
you can do it without even your 3 being active.
I think they've been
Oh, this is a fucking 10 out of 10 change. This is a 10 out of 10. Oh, this is phenomenal.
Pele players enjoy this.
Can you like go?
No, this is so good. This is so good.
Yeah, let's see.
Yeah, so you can walk backwards and do this. So you can use this to juke. Unlike
That's so good.
Princess Bari, Princess Bari actually has full strafe and backpedal penalty. She still has backpedal penalty, so her ability.
Yeah,
to
her
juke
plus one was
backwards
just
is
it was just a little clunky. But this is a really good plus one.
That's also just for usability. The first time I actually playtested this with full speed, I absolutely was backpedaling the camp, and I zoomed completely out of the camp. And we feel like you're going to mostly want this when you're going forward. If you're strafing and backpedaling.
Yeah, playing a hunter and having back penalty or backpedal.
It's tailored to her. It's not just a copy paste of
Playing an ADC and having the backpedal penalty being removed is a lot different than an assassin.
Extra mobility. You can also use it to juke, which is a new application that was a lot harder because your 3 had to be active at the time you wanted to juke.
You had to have fucking gas or whatever it's called.
And we think this is just cool tech in general. Like,
no, this is cool.
Really
this is good. 10 out of 10.
Well, it felt on Bari. It just feels really easy, intuitive to control.
It also feels really good on controller on Bari. I had not played much Bari on controller, and I played a couple of games with her recently, and I was like, oh my god, it just feels so nice to like dodge around with this.
It's definitely a cool piece of tech.
You can do it backwards, you can do it sideways, you can do it forward, you can do it diagonal, you can do it any way, Lem.
But I happened to pop into somebody's stream last night, and I noticed, and I was like, wait, is this coming in the next update? But,
yeah, we should have probably talked about this on Monday.
Yeah, I know, but it's
we're
all
going to
good.
talk about it now instead.
Yeah, so
wait, what?
You know, we've gotten a lot of feedback just about how apparent and how much stress is on the consumable slot in the jungle. So
yes.
As you can see, I've got a couple potions purchased, and I just killed the Cyclops camp. But I want this ward. I don't want both potions, so I'm just gonna pick this up. Oh, what's this? Bon, what's going on?
The mana potion you can now drop. So we basically wanted some way for while you're out in the jungle. It feels really bad to like just drop, like consume your potion for no reason. So we felt like this swap solution worked really well. It just allows you to pick what you want, you drop it on the ground. Anyone on your team can pick it up too. So you can
really
actually
cool.
do some things like, hey, mid laner, I just dropped a multi-pot because I don't need it anymore. I'm going to go buy this and ward somewhere. You can share it with them. You can also do things like, and this is what I generally do because when I'm jungling, this is what generally happens is I pick up.
You can only drop mana pots though?
Multi-potion. I then get the Cyclops award. I go ward somewhere aggressively I want to, and as I'm circling back to go kill like the back harpies or go across the lane behind the tower.
I'm pretty sure he specified I can drop mana pot.
That's cool.
Yeah, and this also sets up some nice tech for us because we had some early versions of wanting like potentially these to go back to like a base location so that anything that dropped on the map people could from your team could easily pick up. But we
Multi-pots
needed some
also?
generic drop for these because not everything was going to have a 3D.
How do you
model
choose which one you're getting rid of?
like the Cyclops word were, and so this is like a generic thing. So as you swap different stuff, if it has a model, we'll use it. If it doesn't have a model, it will do that little gold plaque with the item. But we just think this is a nice quality of life improvement. It doesn't solve every problem, but incremental steps to improve things. And it just felt good.
A couple questions. Does it automatically swaps with your slot 2?
So it will try slot 2 first. Then it will try slot 1 if you have something that's not droppable. And things that are not droppable are chalices, 3K potions, and the obsidian dagger.
Okay.
Because we were worried that would actually create kind of a more like, tank, spend your 3K gold on another power potion for me and drop it, right? Or obsidian dagger is really meant to be someone picks it up and builds onto it, and if you die, you drop it, right? Like, so some of these we have limited. But
guess.
other ones you can totally drop.
And can enemies pick up these things that we drop, or is it just your own team?
Enemies cannot pick it up, just your own team.
And if you
This is a W then? Am I just a hater?
Else, like,
I don't find this very useful.
Drop something. Can I just say I just want to drop this potion for somebody?
No, you have to have a full inventory slot and you have to be able to swap it. We know that there's some things about this that like it would actually be just cool to just be able to drop something for your team, or it'd be cool like when this times out and runs out, it's gonna just destroy and disappear from the game forever. It'd be cool if that could maybe go to like some team.
As a jungler, first 5 minutes, this would be nice.
How we want to address, like,
But how often are you actually buying a mana pot in the game, period?
To drop. But this.
How often? Oh, the second part to that, if you're not buying a mana pot, you're buying
how long do they last?
a multi-pot.
It's 120 seconds.
Okay,
So you have 2 minutes to pick it up, and I think right now you'll see.
And I think most of the time you're going to be using your multi-pot early enough.
Oh yeah,
icon.
yeah.
I
For
fixed
that to
so
be
that should actually
used.
Be like it should be like a more generic icon.
Cool.
So that isn't final there.
Yeah. I'm not saying it's like the worst change ever or like a useless change. I mean, it's probably nice for some
Mulan
people,
banner,
but
no Vulcan.
Yeah.
Yes, Baron's Brew. Yes, Pyromancer Bomb. Yes.
Oh, you can drop Pyro Bomb.
Yes.
Wait.
So it's Mulan's banner is not droppable.
Wait, you can drop
Bombs
Bomb?
are not droppable. And
Okay, it's actually cool that you can drop Bomb, because a lot of the times, sometimes if you want to give it to like a carry or something, or like a jungler, but they're squishy and you don't want them to walk up, you'll just have your tank walk up and grab it and then come back and drop it.
So for example, like,
but you have to have an open
3 health
camp.
potions, and then you go and try to swap a health potion that's been dropped on the ground. If it can't add a stack to your health potion thing, it just won't let you do it. So yeah, just
cool.
A lot of nice flexibility. It's really easy to use. And you can ping through your team.
I like it more because I can drop bombs.
I don't need it anymore.
I kind of wish I could drop Dagger too.
It's just a nice improvement for something that's
quality
been
of life,
but
a problem for a
maybe
while.
that's
And it's really cool because I know we got a lot
broken.
of feedback just about.
Because I like the capabilities to like
Cyclops and the,
switch stuff up.
Can DJ Zeus drop the beat?
Yeah, I know you can't drop Dagger. I was just saying it would be cool to drop Dagger also. The only thing that 3K pots make
It should
sense.
apply to every mode where these
But-
droppables exist.
Because that's like
Or
actual gold
Arena, it
income that
doesn't
you'd be
apply,
giving over
it's
to an ally, which would just be
apply
broken.
Because you can get I believe you can get the crystalline eggs. I haven't played the new dev test version that much. I don't remember what's all in that
I know
one.
that you can get the bombs.
Yeah, the runic
Yeah.
bomb and the crystalline
So
egg.
it should
and
still
I
work
believe
with
they
Well,
have
I
obsidian
think-
dagger, but that's not droppable. So.
Dagger doesn't
still,
always
you
go
know,
to squishies. A lot of the times tanks can use Dagger really well
Hold
also.
on to.
That's why I think it would be interesting to be like, oh, a fight's happening, somebody just grab the Dagger
Yeah, actually, prototyping
And then
sounds really fun because I had a.
If the fight happens, however, then you could like drop it on somebody else. I get it. I get why. I just think it would be more fun, a little bit of depth to the game.
I think that was everything on my list. We got about 11 minutes for some Q&A. I know these past couple shows have been largely just us, giving updates to the community. So maybe for the Friday show, we'll leave it a little bit more open
I don't
for
think we have
Q&A.
anything planned for Friday right now, do we?
I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't think so. So maybe just more Q&A on Friday.
Cool. All right. Well, chat, I know you've already been asking a few questions, but any other questions about anything upcoming in Open Beta 7 or anything just might...
When will patch notes?
I saw some questions about the gold changes. I assume they're talking about First Blood gold would be my guess. We might. So we've been seeing the changes of the data of that. We've been pulling just to see like how match length, how win rates based off the amount of time a match has had based off gold lead, how that's changed. And it actually hasn't really moved the needle much at all. Which means that it could go back to 200, it could go back to 75, and it wouldn't really make a difference. We do think that there's probably some balance of 200 still being a bit too intense. It does create some situations where that person can really spike and snowball the game in ways that are just very intense. Yeah. But do we stick at 75? That we could definitely potentially go back on that.
Yeah, cool. I saw a question. Will the movement changes that we talked about last week be in this update?
I don't know.
I don't know.
Okay.
I think they're still working on some things, and I think it depends on whether they get those fixes into a good place.
Cool.
I'm not gonna spam, but I just want to know when patch notes will be live.
Actively looking at, so I think we're there's the edge cases we still need to resolve, and we want to make sure that before.
Wait, the patch notes aren't going to be live on launch?
If you beads Aladdin lamp, can it kill you?
No, because the damage and the health reset happens simultaneously.
Okay.
Okay.
I think that's a good question. I should go test
Sorry,
it.
Ron Chat. Okay, I was gonna say that's tough.
Get the heal.
Well, the damage calc and
the
damage calc and the health should happen at the same time, but I'm thinking there might be a gap there, so I might need to go test that. Someone asked, are you using Blender in development? I use Blender because I'm not an artist, and if I make something prototypey, I use Blender because I can use it. At some point, we'll get better art for that. That's very much just to get the quality of life improvement into your hands.
I see some people asking about ranked reset. I know that's something that we've been talking about. I think that Max said that he's waiting on kind of one more piece of tech that should be coming soon before he does a ranked reset. But I think we are aware that at some point here, we'll need at least a soft reset to ranked that.
Yes, we do. Give it to me now, Max. Give it to me now. I'm ready.
We're taking a look at. So
yeah, we've done a lot of matchmaking changes.
Remember it was live on launch. Okay, I got you.
At some point.
Console chat win. We still need to pass certification, so we'll give you an update when we can. This question about Switch 2. We were not in the loop on Switch 2. We found out about it this morning by watching the stream like y'all did. And the game's not currently in development for Switch 2. It's something we could definitely consider in the future, but not at this time.
I saw someone mention that a while back we had God suggestions based off play rate.
Travis, do you know when the patch notes will be live, or is it unknown? If it's unknown, it's fine. I'm just curious if it's known.
It wouldn't be too crazy to make a tool that auto updates it, but unless we change a character a lot, we don't expect those to really change that much, right? Unless we do a significant nerf to Zeus's ability to play the carry role, he probably stays about the same percentage of use rate between the two.
God Builder news, we're still targeting OB8, so not this next update, but the one after that for the God Builder.
2.5-ish weeks.
2.5 weeks, yeah. It could slip.
Sneak a few more things in. Sounds good. Appreciate it.
As quickly as we can. Our development.
You're good. No need to say sorry.
Because one of the lead
that's just one of the things I like looking over.
And that slowed things down. But it's coming along. I just reviewed a version of it last night, and it's.
Now I have to ask my daily Alani question.
Good system once it's on.
It's actually really funny that happened because that was Hirez development. I was finishing up Hera.
Slush today.
I had a trial where I was gone for a week and a half.
I remember that, yeah.
And that was right at the end when you're doing all that final polish and deciding everything and locking it down. I was just sorry guys, I have jury duty. It's always really weird.
I see someone in chat asking about combat blink. So
yes.
What's the plan for that? Are we still thinking about potentially a version of that coming back to the game, or is that just not a possibility?
I mean, it's entirely possible, but we want to sit on this version of it for a while. We think that we found a good spot.
Wait, I've got a good question.
Non-combat blink what its cooldown should be, what kind of aggressive rules it should have. And we kind of want to let this sit for a while so that we can get a much more long tail of data, because it takes a long time for also people to change their play patterns and respond to stuff. We'll see after that. There's always also a possibility that like maybe that effect is healthier as an active item that you have to buy into. We've talked about different ways of like getting those effects in. So for now, we're going to sit on this version. It doesn't mean that we are forever saying no to it, but
also I have like 10 questions.
We generally like this direction that we've gone. And so we want to see how it feels over the long haul before we make big decisions to change that.
Somebody says that Nemesis should have an aspect of jury duty, and just made me laugh. There's a question here I do want to call out. Haunted Akuma XC asks, are there any steps being taken to make the Smite 2 item store more easily navigable for controller players? And my chat just moved, so I can't read the rest of your question. I think it says something like needing to click through like 20 different items is a lot. We think that Smite 2 console item store is pretty darn close to the Smite 1 console item store at this point in time. It's got the same kind of functionality where if you click buy on the top item, it's going to buy all the components that you can afford automatically.
I fucking timed it incorrectly, man. Shit.
The sorting is all the same. The layout's the same. So if there are any like really specific like feelings about what is making the console item store not feel good to you, please let us know, because we're there are certain small things that we think we can continue to improve on. But if there's more like systemic things that you think are issues, or even small things, like we would love to hear specific feedback on the item store at this point in time.
Question for you, Pond. How do you feel about support starters as they currently stand?
Wait, who said that?
Gold reduction and their lackluster passives. I see more supports building Warrior's Axe and Bluestone and Sands of Time most of the
Dude, no way.
So we feel
They're
like
trolling.
if you're playing the support role, there's kind of two ways to do it. There's a
Support
very
starters are
aggressive
OP.
style where you roam and you kind of become like a second jungler almost. And there's a role where you are more supporty to lane. You really want to roam and provide utility to your team.
I cannot believe I heard support starters are underwhelming.
And so we want there to be a starter that really supports that play style. So we think that like that's why over the history of all of Smite 1 and Smite 2 continued this, we have a starter that gives you gold gain. Sometimes the gold gain ends up being too high, and that creates different balance problems. We might be in that world, especially because the other modes can generally leverage those effects a lot stronger. That was one aspect where it's like, if we nerf this for Joust, where like people could stack these really effectively, or Arena where people could stack these really effectively, it might hurt the integrity of the Conquest support. But the fact that people might want to change and flex away from that is actually interesting and cool. And
my support starters might be
larger
bugged.
systems, like because you got the support role given to you, you get a passive effect that is always on. It's also really hard for people to kind of know and understand. You'd have to do something like that if you wanted to make it so they had full freedom to pick whatever starter they want.
Yeah,
so
underwhelming as in boring.
We are generally okay with, hey, this is the support style. You are expected to build this, and that's like what we do to make sure that you have enough gold to continue the game with. It requires a lot more to change from that paradigm. We have some stuff kind of in the back end that we're working on that may alleviate this, and we can probably bring down the gold that it provides on its own, so it doesn't feel as mandatory as it currently does. It's just a very tricky balance problem that affects the whole game, because anything gold economy, as the person who was generally responsible for the 10 benevolence meta in Smite 1.
I'm actually really curious about that.
It's very scary. There's a lot to consider.
I think that there is a way that they just nerf Blink instead of, or nerfing other relics instead of buffing Blink.
Oh, that's a good one. I'm gonna, sorry,
taking
a picture. Sorry, just something I'm gonna follow up on. Some console store notes. There've been some good ones that have come in that I am going to follow up on.
Cool.
So I appreciate people who are typing those.
Could we nerf other relics instead of buffing Blink more? We could. So we feel like actually we want to be careful about nerfing relics too much, because especially depending on the team comp you're against, if you're against like an Ares that you really feel like you need beats for, and even if you buy Talisman of Purification, if you're against 2 characters or 3 characters that have really strong CC, as the game progresses, eventually we'll have an Ares Dodgy combo, right? And you could do Ares Dodgy the Morgan. If we make it so that these relics are too restrictive, it can create some negativity there. So we want to be careful about just making like pure beads probably could, based off the current state of the game, could be nerfed. But does that actually make it a more fun game for everyone?
Yes!
So we just want to be careful when we go to nerfing those tools that people are
Love
using
it!
to kind of
Best
deal
day
with,
of
like,
my
one-time
life.
Big burst cases.
What did I miss? He said beads could be nerfed in the current state of the game. We're so back.
When we see a version of the prison system that allows slight model changes as well, it seems ridiculous to see 3 versions of the same new WA skin when the prism system exists. So that in particular was done that way and not using the prism system because of how we want to distribute those skins. We're going to be giving one of those skins away for free.
I actually do think that all the relics should just be nerfed, because I don't want it to get to the point where also that's incorrect. Nerfing beats is not GG's for mids.
If you
relics, I think relics should be like a weaker portion of the game that just help you out a little bit. I think actives should be the strength that you're looking for.
Yes, basically. So in order for us to set up
I think
where we could give away,
we should be nerfing relics instead of buffing blink.
It had to be a new, different skin. Yeah. Wherever possible, we're going to make use of the prison system.
Does the ADCs have the weakest? Blink is the best relic in the game by a country fucking mile. What are you talking about?
I don't know. Yes, the prism system wherever possible going forward. And we actually talked about internally, like, if we could
I've already said that ADCs and mids should get more exciting actives. I agree.
To give one away, and we already had the one that was Divine Legacy exclusive, and then we had another version that we initially were just going to.
Or they're really boring.
Couldn't because of the
which is
restrictions. Cool.
Yep.
All right. Well, we are at
Could
2
be changed.
o'clock, so it's time for
one
more question. And we will get back to it. And
that's all caps. Surely they see that.
Flash test pretty close towards the end of the show, so just keep an eye on our social media channels.
We almost forgot again. Money check.
I know, right? Pink slush today.
Slush. We still have them in restock.
I know. It's still good though,
It's still good.
Let's see.
One more question.
I saw a good one that passed, but Pawn, do you want to give just a little bit? You don't have to go into details, but just like overall thought process on what the OB8 pass on items is going to look like in terms of specialization and how we're going forward.
Yeah, so the goal is to look at items and kind of divide them into 2 camps. These are your staple items that feel like they're okay with being largely stat focused with a passive that provides some utility, but it's not really the defining thing, right? Jotuns, I think, is a really good example of this item where it serves its role really well. It's a decent strength item. It has a lot of cooldown reduction. This feels like the game, as much as it would feel potentially bad to have like every single assassin in the entire game buying Jotuns, you still have 5 other items to flex with, and the game state would actually probably feel pretty good for those assassins, right? Same with like Hydras is another example of like those kind of staple items that like they're your like 1, 2, 3 item buys. That
Tempo actually typed one of the smartest things I've ever seen him type in the Discord, and then he follows it up with, "Can we have an item that unleashes Titans?"
Counter pick or specialization or like essentially reward items. So Deathbringer was an example of this one, right? Cool. Like if you can just throw a Deathbringer into any build and it just feels like a strong DPS increase and you haven't built really to support it,
come in here and yell at you. I did nothing wrong.
Hootie, right? That item needs to be that you like if you just throw it at the end of a build where you bought all the lowest intelligence items and it was still like the best buy you could have made, that's the thing that we want to avoid. Similarly, things like chin size. Right now, we've basically gone back and forth on this smite.
That's a good question, Tiger Milk.
Between being
that's a fucking good question
all the time, as well as being a anti-tank thing that isn't as good as anti-tank. But if we go one direction, well, then the people who are using it for damage feel bad. We want to pick a lane for chins to go in, and right now we'd be leaning on that.
Yeah, creator voice packs would be cool,
especially the high health build item. Cool. But that would mean that we must.
I think players just some players like supporting creators while also supporting smite games. So if they could ever do something like that, where it's like,
right? So
creator voice packs casting over your game or talking over your game like they did with Weaken and Smite 1.
Really pay off for you building a particular.
And you can like split it halfway or something like that with the creators and Hirez.
It's useful,
but I don't know how much money it takes to create something like that.
So OB8 right now is shaping up to be a really big patch internally. We'll see where we actually get to when we decide to branch OB8, how far we actually got into this process. We probably still have like at least 1 to 1.5 more meetings before we can really actually dive in and implement all this. So we have a lot of work ahead of us there, which is why we know that like OB8 and OB9, that's why we're putting OB9 on there, is because we have a lot of work to do there. But that's kind of the vein of what we're doing with this pass. We want to make sure that items don't feel like they're just no-brainer. I buy this every game. Because why Jotuns, sure, you build at the first of every single game you play with Assassin. That's fine if the next 5 items you build are really interesting and you change based on how the game goes. But if all 6 of your items are locked to the same thing because you feel like you must build these items because they're the most efficient and nothing about the game change is causing you to change that, that's the problem we want to resolve.
Duskbreaker asks,